What's going on, space monkeys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm your host, Robert Durden. Tonight we're going to be talking about Khanna and Ben Shapiro. They had a debate on Ben Shapiro's show that was about 12 or 13 minutes long on the minimum wage. And a lot of people give Khanna flack because sometimes he'll go on Fox News and try to appeal to viewers that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. And I don't know why people get on people like that. It's like the same people that went after Bernie when he had his town hall on Fox News, when he got the crowd to clap for universal health care and like boo the Fox News hosts on some of the draconian views that they hold. Just because you're going on Ben Shapiro's show does not mean you're, advocating for Ben Shapiro's ideas. That's the dumbest argument I've ever heard. It's so stupid. So it's great that he went on there, and I gotta tell you, man, the reason I'm doing this episode is because if you watch this 12 minutes, this is Khanna showing you how he's a phenomenal debater and how he's also following all the rules of Fight Club. So that's why I'm doing this. I'm going to go over the rules. Rule 1, talk about Fight Club. Rules 2 through 5, he does all of them extremely well in this debate. Rule 2, pick your battles, know your shit. Rule 3, know your opponent. Rule 4, keep the debate on topic. And Rule 5, admit when you're wrong. So I'll post a link in the box below, and you should really watch it. But I'm going to break it down for you as best I can without going too in-depth in about 5 different interactions and exactly what Ben Shapiro asserts, why it's bogus, and how Roe adapts and knows what he's talking about. He's one of those guys that he's prepared. He knows more than Ben Shapiro does, so he knows how he's going to get attacked. So he is prepared for the talking points that Ben's going to throw out there and wields or completely turns the conversation and reframes every single time and shoots down everything like King Kong at the top of the tower knocking down planes, man. He's just like, bad argument, reframe, keep the debate on topic. Roe's great. So it's a clinic. So the first thing that Ben says is he incorrectly asserts that because something that Roe tweeted to the effect of, oh, if you're a business and you can't afford to pay your workers a living wage, you don't deserve to be in business. Ben then flips that and goes, well, you said this, that means that you must want a whole bunch of small businesses to go out of business because they're the ones that would be disproportionately hurt by a minimum wage increase. So he immediately takes it out of context and flips it on Roe without even so much as a real question. He just kind of attacks him with it. And of course, Roe does the right thing and he goes, yeah, let me clarify. That's not what I mean. I'm an advocate for small businesses, and in fact, what I want to do is give small businesses that have been decimated by COVID and that are disproportionately hit by when you do minimum wage hikes, government subsidies to make sure that they can keep up with corporations. So he just clarifies, puts it back into context, and honestly, this is the one weak point of that Roe does sometimes, and all of them do it, is that they make these generalizations like that little cliche, that saying that says, well, if you can't pay a certain wage, a living wage, then you don't deserve to be in business. Don't generalize, because there are small businesses that are going to have a hard time paying the $15 minimum wage in poor states. And so you should really not say stuff like that, because then people like Ben Shapiro will try to flip it on you. But then he clarified just fine, completely diffused the argument, and it didn't land the way that Ben Shapiro wanted it to. Then Ben goes and asserts that there are numerous studies out there that say that $15 minimum wage, quote-unquote, depresses employment. And then he completely flips in the middle of his diatribe about that and starts talking about how it doesn't make sense for us to not let the free market decide what the minimum wage is. And he thinks it's fair that it's decided that it's a $7.25 minimum wage. And, of course, this is absolutely bogus, and the evidence is, overwhelming. Like, if the minimum wage would go up with productivity, then Tesla, Walmart, Amazon workers would be making a ton of money right now because their wage would be tied entirely to the profits, and they've made record-setting profits over the last 18 months, and particularly during COVID. Many huge companies have made record-setting profits, but yet the minimum wage doesn't go up for any of these people that are working at these jobs. So that's bogus. And then Roe says so You know, when you have monopolies, you don't have a true free market, because you can't, as a worker, always say, well, you're not paying enough, I'm just going to go work elsewhere, because you don't have another choice. If there's a monopoly in the market that you happen to work in, it's like you don't have a choice in some cities to work for someone other than Amazon if your skill set is only working at places like Amazon. Or the same thing goes for Comcast. If they have a monopoly on that area, you don't have bargaining power as a worker. And this is something that Roe gets Ben Shapiro twice on, and it's really great. He gets him to assert that like workers individually have bargaining power against enormous corporations, which we know is not true. The best you ever get as a worker is if you can unionize enough to actually have some bargaining power. You don't individually have that. That's completely nonsense. So Roe gets him there, and then Ben Shapiro goes, well, actually, if you don't know this, Amazon workers don't make minimum wage, Roe. And then Roe goes, yeah, because Bernie did the Stop Bezos Act and forced him to raise wages to $15 minimum wage. They didn't do it because the market said that they had to do it, and their profits motivated them to pay their workers more. It's because Bernie laid the hammer down and was threatening to tax the living hell out of companies that have a lot of their employees end up on welfare. So that's why the wages went up. It has nothing to do with the free markets. So again, Roe's just like, get down, bitch. She just like posterizes them. And then, let's see here. Right. And then, let's see what we got. Right, and then this is where Roe really gets Ben on the best thing. And the part of the debate that was the most interesting was when basically Roe asserts that, or Ben says that you can't implement a $15 minimum wage across the board because the standard of living is different in West Virginia, or he uses the example of Mississippi versus California. And Roe goes, yeah, I concede that point. That's why I agree that we should phase it in, and it should be calculated differently, because, of course, Khanna, he's in the 17th District of California, which is Silicon Valley. Of course, it makes sense for them to have something more like a $30 minimum wage because of the cost of living there. And, of course, Mississippi, it would make more sense to have more like a $13 minimum wage there. I would still advocate for the floor being at least $15, and then you work your way up from there. And Roe makes that point to Ben, and then what Ben says is he basically doesn't want a minimum wage. And Roe goes, so you don't want, if I were to ask you what you would put the federal minimum wage at, what would you say, Ben? And he says, oh, I would have it at 0. And this is the brilliance of Khanna, and he's keeping the debate on topic, and he's also reframing in a way that is, it doesn't allow Ben to get off topic, which he's so good at doing because he speaks so fast and he obfuscates and he changes gears and changes the argument like sometimes mid-sentence to confuse the people that watch his show. And Roe just keeps keeping him on debate, that's a rule of Fight Club. It's wonderful. And then in the end, he is more or less having a conversation with Ben, and he shoots down all of Ben's bad points, but he lures him in and gets him to admit some things that are just extremely not popular ideas. And that's what I like to do on this show. This isn't like a rap battle where you're going to be constantly bodying people with debate points where it's like, ooh, ah, afterwards. You know, it's not going to be like that. The best debates you can have are what Roe just did, where he goes in and has a good conversation, and the viewers that see him as non-confrontational and making some pretty good points along the way. So he goes in there, and it seems like it's a conversation, but anybody that has half a brain watches that and goes, well, damn, that guy Roe, I've never seen him before, but he's making some pretty good points. And then in the end, the best thing that Roe does is that he keeps bringing the conversation back to productivity and happiness. He does it about 4 minutes in, and then he does it at his closing statement as well, where he basically goes, listen, I am not trying to get rid of capitalism. I just have seen studies out there that show that if you pay people a living wage, they're more productive at work, especially in the long run, and they are happier, self-reported happier. And also the turnover rate is lower with these companies because no one quits their job necessarily when they're getting paid $15 an hour and they can live off of their wage. but a lot of people will quit their job if they're making $7.25 an hour. So he brings it back to productivity and happiness the entire time, which is that's an argument that is going to land with the average Joe. And a lot of these people that watch Ben Shapiro's show probably only make, some of them probably only make $7.25 or $8 or $9 an hour, and they see this guy who's also a capitalist like Khanna making convincing arguments for their happiness and that they can be more productive if they would simply get their wage hiked. And suddenly you have people thinking, well, you know what? This guy's making some good sense.